I was born in Bristol in England and came to Australia about 38 years ago. In England I worked in electronics, which has been my life. I've always worked in electronics. I used to have a car and service an area of Devon and Cornwall in the UK. I came on the Australis back in the 70s, and I suppose I was successful. I always considered myself successful in the UK and thought I could make more of a success in Australia. It was quite a decision because I had a good job. The money was good and car, and I was on my own. I was left to just do the work that I was given, and there was no problem. And it just made sense though to come here because I enjoyed enjoy a sunny atmosphere or sunny. I like the sun, and I also like to go on the beach, which I couldn't do very often in the UK. When I came to Australia, I started off by doing some painting with a team to make more money, and then after about 6 months went back into electronics. I worked for a company in the very early days of facsimile machines before they were a popular thing. They were just for industry in those days. I realised I was getting absolutely nowhere. I could just pay my bills. So I started a business repairing, in those days, car sound. So we started car sound and went on to taking car radios out, putting cassettes in, and then later on other equipment as well in cars. That then went into hi-fi and stereo equipment, eventually into organs and various other pieces of equipment. So built up quite a big business and then pulled the plug on it. Well, I wanted to travel. I wanted more time for myself. I just found myself tied down in a business, and then I found I was tied down as well with a house and all the other things that went with it. And I started thinking about doing other things in life. Oh, when I was around 60 years old, I suppose, maybe a bit more. It was a progression. And one day I decided to go to Derby in the Kimberley. And I worked up there for about 6 months. Met a lady one weekend in Broome, and she also wanted to travel, so we got together. I found a business that needed looking after in Victoria, and we both went there, looked after the business for about 9 months, something like that. We bought a tent, and we went tenting around in Victoria, New South Wales, and decided then to come back to Western Australia and do something about full-time travel. First of all, we bought a coaster bus that was converted into a camper, and we used to go away weekends and holiday times, and made a decision that when I was 65 we would retire and go travelling full-time. About 3 months before I became 65, I was told that I was never going to complete the vehicle and we should go right away. I'll step back a bit here. What happened was that we bought a coaster bus, a 6-metre vehicle with seats, took all the seats out and converted everything myself, and it was an ongoing project as far as my friend was concerned. So 3 months before I was 65, we packed up and headed to Tasmania, from Western Australia to Tasmania for Christmas. Well, it wasn't my house. I'd already got rid of all those kind of things out of my life, and the house was rented out, and we were away for a few months, or no, for a couple of years it would have been, and then my friend decided to sell the house and we would both carry on travelling forever. Anyway, after about 5 or 6 years we developed separate hobbies, and the two were really a bit difficult to manage. So my friend decided to buy around a camper or a motorhome and go off on her own. Now we're good friends, we meet up very often, we keep in touch on the telephone, but we needed a slightly different lifestyle to each other. No, I decided to get rid of all the things that hold people back, like a house and bills and everything else, and just say goodbye to a lot of it. So I've lived now I'm in my 10th year of living full-time on the road. I like to think of myself as being a homeless person, and I just have a couple of bills which I pay on the internet. I stay in caravan parks sometimes. They're very expensive as far as I'm concerned. I'm set up not to need caravan parks really. I've got all the power I need and everything else. I'm totally self-sufficient, and I prefer to live like that. Sure, the national parks, there are places which are gazetted where you can stay, so there's no real problem. I think that most problems that we have, all of us have, are simply in the mind. They don't really exist when you go out there and examine what's available to you, you know. Well, the first trip we did was from Western Australia through South Australia in Victoria into Tasmania for Christmas. We stayed there for 3 months, and after that we went up the east coast of Australia. We stayed there for about 2.5 years on the east coast, exploring things. It was a beautiful lifestyle. I've never been actually right round Australia because of time constraint. By the time you get to the north, the weather's beginning to change and you need to come south again. So we came south, we came to Perth, and then decided to split up. Then after that I decided to just go on my own, and I went back east and did very much the same thing, travelling around the east coast. I then decided, yes, okay, east coast is fine, I want to go and look at the west coast beaches again, so I came back to Perth. When I get lonely, I start doing things that stops me from being lonely. There are plenty of people on the road. There are literally thousands of people. But I was one day in Carnarvon, and I saw a girl walk past the vehicle, and she started walking out towards the jetty on the railway track. Well, that's hard going. And within minutes she turned around and came back. And I said to her, I'm a volunteer out at the jetty. If you're going there, I can give you a lift. And she said, yeah, that would be lovely. Jumped in and off we went to the jetty. At 4 o'clock I finished, and she came back to Carnarvon with me, and I asked her if she'd like to travel. And we spent about 1.5 weeks, I suppose, travelling to various beaches and various places. And I got the idea of shall we say, meeting backpackers and having them travel with me. Virginia was one of 9 people. I've travelled with 9 different backpackers, and Virginia, we still keep in touch, and she's diving at the moment in Thailand. And yeah, we had a ball. We went swimming, snorkeling. Virginia always liked the water. Couldn't go past water without her saying, I want to go for a swim. She's into scuba diving, I'm not. We went to a beach one day where there was a small offshore island, and we swam out to the island and swam round and sat on this little beach and came ashore and had a glass of wine and watched the sunset. And then she told me that's the furthest she'd ever swam because she normally jumps over the side of the boat and goes down in the scuba outfit. So that was quite interesting. Virginia was a slow mover. So when we left Perth, we got as far as Ocean Reef, which is only in the outer suburbs of Perth. And next day we went to Yanchep, and it took a long time for us to go, just a few kilometers every day. because of her liking for swimming. Yeah, that's right. I've met them on internet sites and things like that. They're usually asking for a lift. Quite a good one, a memorable one has been a girl I met, and we went to South Australia, right the way up through the middle to Darwin. She then said she was going to stay one night in Singapore before going home to Hong Kong. And I said, well, I've never been to Singapore. So we ended up being in Singapore for 6 days, and we had a good look around. We went into Malaysia as well, and then I came back to Darwin and drove down the west coast. Since then I've seen her twice in Hong Kong on trips to Taiwan and to Korea. On the last couple of days I was there, I met another lady and we got on very well. On my return to Australia, I decided to go back to Taiwan, and I've just returned from 3 months there. I can't talk more highly of the people. I was treated so well. They looked after me all the time. There were 3 ladies that went everywhere with me and took me places. Luckily, 2 were traders and had the time, and the other one sales manager for a Taiwan company, and she simply took time off. And the 3 of us, we were on high-speed trains, on slow trains, on buses, all kinds of things. We were up to all kinds of mischief and had a wonderful time. Most of Taiwan and an island as well. On my return trip, I intended going to other islands, but the weather had changed and it started getting wet, which was unseasonal. They didn't expect to have rain, but it was another experience. Taiwan has to be one, and the trip up through the center with the other girl from Hong Kong would be another. That was a beautiful trip. She's so funny. We you're laughing from the moment you wake up to when you go to bed at night. It's just so much fun. I couldn't believe it. I've met some wonderful people. It's been quite an experience that I would never forget. I simply I don't spend money on things that other people do. Spend money on I eat healthy food. I don't eat expensive food, and I just have a way of saving. That's all. Well, of course it's free, but it's very expensive to buy the solar panels in the beginning, and batteries need replacing. I usually replace them every 3 years, whether they need it or not. It's too important to me, and the batteries are expensive. So if you worked it out as on a weekly basis, yeah, it costs me money. So you get free power from the sun, but to set up and keep it running, yeah, it can be more, or it can be expensive, but not as expensive as buying electricity. You know, some days it's maybe 50 kilometers, and other days it might be 300. Just depends what trip you're doing. The first trip across the Nullarbor was fairly quick. And then I realised that there's plenty to see on the Nullarbor. It's not exciting things to see, but there are things to see. Memorable one is the head of the bike. I was there when the whales were there with calves. And you've got something between 100 and 150 whales with calves, and they're playing. And the calves are learning. They're actually teaching the calves how to live. It's quite an experience. I find that very often when you're just snorkeling and looking at fish, they just don't swim around. They have a life. It's quite incredible. If you go to Tasmania, there's a wealth of craft, and I went for the end of the Sydney to Hobart yacht race, which didn't disappoint me. I stayed up all night and watch yachts come up the river. So it depends what you're interested in, but there's so much going on in the country. You go to tourist bureaus and get information about what's going on, or you read books. I belong to Camper Motorhome Club of Australia, and in our magazine there's plenty of information. So it depends what you want to do, but there's something for everyone. I've enjoyed some very good steam engine and tractor pulling type of activities. I've been to all kinds of shows. Well, in some of the cities, you know, I've been to everything that you can do in these cities. It's amazing how much there is in Perth that I didn't know about until I became a tourist. Went to the tourist bureau and then was amazed at what I didn't know about Perth, even having lived there for, what, 25, 30 years. Amateur radio, it's been a godsend to me. I became a radio amateur many years ago. Always had an interest in it, but on the road it's given me the opportunity to meet up with fellow radio amateurs who are also traveling, also visiting clubs. They make you welcome. That's not that you put on the people, it's just they make you welcome, and you learn about the area. In the Camper Motorhome Club we have a thing called Glove Box Guide, which now is not a book for the glove box but a website, and there are people in every town who will help you should you get a problem. You're never really alone on the road. I've no desire to settle down, shall we say, although it can happen. I will keep travelling as long as I can. I have plans to change my vehicle to something else, and that happens regularly. I get this thought of changing the vehicle, then I realise how comfortable and how easy it is to use this vehicle, then the thought goes away. One of the biggest problems people have when they go on the road is choosing a big vehicle. It becomes unmanageable. Mine is only 6 meters long, it's a bit small, but I go into car parks, I can turn in the road, I can do many things with it. There's nothing worse than going past a street in a strange town and then not knowing how to turn around and get back. And people with big vehicles, I feel sorry for them. There's plenty for sale, and I think people soon realise that the bigger the vehicle, the bigger the headache. I don't believe that there are people in the bush waiting for me to stop 100 kilometres from nowhere, and they camp there waiting for me to park so that they can attack me. In many ways I feel more secure than in a caravan park where there are a lot of people that I don't know, and I've had a couple of things stolen. I'm not unique in that way. There are all kinds of people on the road. Some, you know, some will give you everything and others would take everything from you. You just have to be cautious wherever you go. I enjoy the bush for a few days, and then I want people. So I go where there's people. I prefer the beach. I like a quiet beach, but also it's nice sometimes when there are other people there and you sit down of an evening and maybe enjoy a glass of wine and a chat about where you've been and what you're doing. So again, I say you're never lonely. It's unusual for you to be lonely if you don't want to be. Well, thank you for recording, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.